Hello and welcome. This is Jennifer McGuire. I'm so glad you're here. Many times in videos, I've mentioned that I like to have a lot of pre-stamped sentiments ready to go that I can grab and add onto my cards. I have gotten a lot of requests to share both how I go about creating a lot of sentiments and also how I store them. I have a great solution for you on the storage, which I'll show you at the end of this video. And first, I'll show you 3 different methods, actually kind of 4 different methods that you can use to go about preparing a bunch of pre-stamped sentiments. These are things that I do when I feel like I've lost my creativity, my mojo is nowhere to be found, but I still want to make something with my hands. That way, when I am feeling creative, I'll have some pieces ready to go. And I have lots of hacks and tips to share along the way. But before we get started, I wanted to quickly mention something. Several of you have asked that I let you know in videos if I'll be teaching in an upcoming virtual event. So I'm sharing this here. This is the Hero Arts Stamp Along. It's in April. Lots of amazing teachers in this. The thing I like about Hero Arts events, their virtual events, is that the price is very low. But if you want to buy the products used in class, you can buy that package also, or you can just use products you have. I will be teaching in this event, and I will also be taking the classes with the other instructors because I really like how laid back and fun the Hero Arts events are and how they have a great community that builds up during the class. So something definitely worth checking out. You can always watch the videos later on too. Just wanted to mention that I'll have more information in my description below. Okay, let's get started for my first method for creating a bunch of stamped and die-cut sentiments all at once. There are several different methods you can use depending on what type of stamps and dies you're using. So I'll show you 3 or 4 of those methods today, and hopefully you can pick what you have and which of the techniques works for you. This first option is if you have a stamp set of all sentiments and all the coordinating dies. This is the new Hero Arts Friendly Messages stamp set, and there is a coordinating die set available. I love the style and sentiments included in this. Now, these are all individual stamps and individual dies. I still need to cut them apart, but I'm going to show you a trick if you leave them connected. Oh, by the way, before I forget, if you don't have any sentiment stamps with coordinating dies, don't worry. One of my methods later in this video works for sentiments with no coordinating dies. I have a piece of scrap cardstock. Something bright is nice because you're going to keep this as a template and you can use it over and over. I'm taping the dies onto that cardstock and running it through my die cut machine. These dies are really meant to be clipped apart so you can use them separately, but I'm just going to leave them together and make a bunch of sentiments at once. If yours are cut apart or come apart, I'll show you an option for that later. All right, now here I'm just trimming this down, and this yellow template I will keep with my stamp set so I can do this anytime in the future also. I'm using my Misty stamping tool, but if you have a large acrylic block, you could do this method with that instead. I put the template into the corner of my stamping tool, and in each of the openings, I'm lining up the stamp that goes with that opening. It's pretty easy to see through the opening on your template and line up that stamp right into it. Every once in a while, I'll stop, close the door on my stamping tool, and grab some of the stamps, and then I'll continue on. The reason I grab them every once in a while onto the door is so I don't accidentally bump them as I add more. Now, after I've put several of these stamps in place, I like to stop and put a piece of cardstock in there and just stamp with ink very quickly. It doesn't matter what color or how well you stamp. We're just testing it out. So I will put that cardstock behind it, stamp it with whatever ink was sitting nearby, and let me just check here and make sure my stamps are centered nicely in those openings. So far, so good. I'll continue on. I just find it easier to adjust them as you go as opposed to at the end. So you could do them all at once and test it, up to you. So I continued to fill in all of the openings with the stamps. Here I'm doing a test, making sure they're all placed nicely in the template's windows. Once I'm happy with it, it's time to start stamping. I'll keep that template for later on. All right, now we can stamp this in any colors we want. Now, I am using black ink today because most of the time when I put a sentiment on a card, I use black ink because I want it to stand out against my card. However, if you like to use colored sentiments, you could do different colors. You could do silver embossing, gold embossing. You can do as many as you want while you have everything set up. But again, I did mostly black on white cardstock. I did do some white heat embossing on black also. All right, now I want to test this out before I go any further. I just stamped one here. I want to make sure one last time that my die is going to line up with the stamping we did. So I lined it up, taped it in place, ran it through my die cut machine, and I checked all the sentiments. They're all die cut beautifully. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp a bunch of these panels and then die cut them all. This is a great way to build up your stash of sentiments. And a stamp set and die set like this makes it really, really easy. Now, as I continue to stamp some more, I wanted to mention that there are some companies who offer like one big stamp and one big coordinating die. And that's one way to make a bunch of sentiment strips. I'm going to show you an example of that in a moment. But right now, I'm sticking with the stamp sets that have individual stamps and individual coordinating dies. The advantage of using or having stamp sets with individual stamps and dies is that if you want to create like a window for one sentiment, you could use that one die. Or you could just make a bunch of one sentiment and one die. So it's nice to have that option. Now, as I mentioned, in some of the cases, I did stamp with Versamark ink onto black cardstock and then white heat embossed. So this will give a reverse look of what I did before. Now, when I use black cardstock, I almost always use Hero Art's pitch black cardstock. It's nice and thick. Another good option is the black cardstock from Tim Holtz. And whenever I do white heat embossing, I use white embossing powder from Hero Arts. I've been using it for many years and it just has held up very well. And I like to use an anti-static powder tool, especially when you're doing white heat embossing on black cardstock, because that powder will want to get everywhere if you don't use an anti-static powder tool first. You can always wipe off that excess powder after you've done your heat embossing. So I stamped and added powder to several panels, and then I will heat set them all at once. The ink doesn't dry so fast that you have to hurry, so you can do several heat embossed panels at once. Now I can use the coordinating die to cut those all out at once. Remember, that die is one big die, but it's meant to be cut between each sentiment so that you can use it separately. I'm just leaving it together to get a bunch of sentiments done. I will keep the template and one stamped panel in the back of my stamp set. So if I ever want to make more of these, I can either use the stamp panel to line up the stamps in my stamping tool or the template to line up my stamps in the stamping tool. And then we can create more by doing lots of stamping and then lots of die cutting. Great way to create a lot of sentiments at once, and this set is wonderful. Okay, my next method for creating a bunch of stamped and die cut sentiments at once is best when you have lots of different stamps, lots of different dies, maybe from different sets, or ones that are already cut apart. So you don't have that one big connected die like we had in the last example. This method is one that I do often because I like to stamp and die cut things from different sets so I can get more use from the sets I have. Let's start by looking at the stamp sets I'll use as examples. This is the Hero Arts Yay Birthday stamp set and coordinating dies. I thought that Hooray would be fun for birthdays, celebrations, congratulations, and more. So we're going to stamp and die cut a few of those. Next is the Hero Arts Wisteria Heroscape stamp set and coordinating dies. Now these stamps are great for layering to create a beautiful floral image. There's butterflies and birds. You can see an example of it stamped there on the back. I'm not using the floral stamps today. I'm just using the sentiments in this one because there are coordinating dies for the hello friend and thank you. And I like the style of them. I figured I could use them on lots of cards. Because I only need those two coordinating dies, I'm cutting them apart using my Hero Arts die snippers. They're by far my favorite tool for getting into those dies and cutting them apart carefully. Now notice there are little pieces of metal that sometimes stick off. When I'm cutting those little pieces off, I don't just grab and clip right away with the clippers because that little piece might shoot across the room. Instead, you just softly grab that little piece of metal with your clippers and then bend the die back and forth. And that'll cause that little piece of metal to fall off into a baby wipe and you can safely throw it away. Now that I have those two dies, I just need to grab those two stamps and we'll set those aside. And then the next sentiments are from this new Hero Arts Floral Imprints stamp set and coordinating dies. Love these floral imprints. I think they'd look so nice stamped and die cut on a colorful background, even stamped in black on a colorful background. But today I'm just using several of the sentiments and coordinating dies. So I cut off those dies and I grab those stamps and we'll set those aside. And now we have the Hero Arts Wonderful Day bundle. You can buy these together or separately. This is in my to use bin because I love the look of it. You can see an example of how the layering stencils work together there on the packaging. So you can stamp, you can stencil, you can die cut, or a mix of all of those. Now, there are no dies in this set for those sentiments, but they're just straight sentiments. I just need a sentiment strip die. So I grabbed this older Hero Arts Messages stamp set and die set that are sold together. The dies in here I use a lot with other stamp sets, and I found that these worked really well with this Wonderful Day stamp set. You'll see me use this Messages set again later in this video. So now I have a variety of sentiments and dies. It's time to mass produce some sentiments. So I put a piece of printer paper, something thin, lightweight cardstock would work also, into my MISTI stamping tool, and I'm arranging those sentiments onto that piece, making sure there's a little bit of room between each of them. They don't need to be straight, don't worry about it. Then close the door on your stamping tool and open it up, and now you're going to stamp onto that thin piece of printer paper or cardstock. This piece of paper will be a tool that we will use to do a bunch of die cutting at once. This method is awesome. I've done it many, many times off screen. This is the way I usually mass produce sentiments. All right, so I'm lining up each of the coordinating dies with the stamped sentiments, and I'm using little pieces of easy C tape. Any temporary tape or washi tape would work. Sorry, my head gets in the way, but the best way to line up your coordinating dies is to look directly above, down onto that stamped image. So after I have them all lined up, we're going to run this through our die cut machine. Now this will cut out these sentiments, but I don't really care about the sentiments in this case. I want that negative space, and I want the dies to stay connected to it. That will create a tool. It's a tool which is a piece of paper with a bunch of dies taped to it. Once you have all the little sentiments popped out, I recommend flipping it over and just putting extra tape on any of those dies that don't feel very connected to the cardstock. You want them to stay connected. So I'm using quite a few pieces of tape here, but I'm going to make a lot of sentiments from this. And if you're lucky, you can tear off that tape and reuse it again later. You could use a big piece of masking paper here to keep those dies connected, but I find this method works best. Now there is some sticky tape exposed. That just makes it slower to pop the die cuts out, so I just use anti-static powder tool on that to remove this stick. We just want to make sure those dies stay on that tool of cardstock. So now I'll go and stamp a bunch of pieces of regular cardstock, black ink on white cardstock, whatever you want, but do a bunch of them. Then to die cut them out, all you have to do is take this tool that you created with all those dies connected and positioned just right, tape that onto your background, run that through your die cut machine, and it will cut those all out wonderfully because you've already lined them up. After I ran that through my die cut machine, this is what I have. I can easily pop out each of those sentiments, remove that extra cardstock there. I'll save those scraps for something else. And then I'm going to use my tool again on another stamped background. So this is something that I would sit down and do a bunch of at once because I'm going to end up taking apart that tool I created, right? Because all of those dies go to different stamp sets. But I can do this maybe 10 times and get 10 of each greeting and save those for future cards. Again, I'll show you the storage system for that later in this video. So this method is best when you have lots of different stamps from different sets and different dies and you want to create a bunch of sentiments at once. Okay, this next method is when you have a stamp set and die that are meant to work together to create a bunch of sentiments all at once. Different companies offer this. This one's from Hero Arts. That's one giant stamp and one large die. And you stamp the big stamp and then you use the die and it cuts them all out at once. Now, what's really cool about this one from Hero Arts is that background die can be used to create like a striped background. It can be used to create sentiment strips that you can add any sentiment to. And they also have come out with several different stamp sets that coordinate with that die. You can see a Valentine's Day and a holiday one. Both of these line up with that same die. So you can use that die with different stamp sets. I've used this die many times in videos. I did a technique, in fact, where I used that die to create striped backgrounds, and I'll link to that here up on the top right and at the end of this video. But for now, we're going to use it as intended. I have the giant stamp, and I'm putting that into my MISTI stamping tool. You can use a large acrylic block if you prefer. And I'll just go ahead and stamp this with black ink on white cardstock. By the way, I will put several different black inks that I recommend in my description below. They are the black inks that I find stamp the best and the darkest, so there's a few options there. So I will repeat this process, stamping several times onto cardstock. Again, change up the colors if you want to. Once I have the stamp, I can take that large die, line it up, run it through my die cut machine, and I end up with all of these sentiment strips. Now they were smart and put a couple sentiments per line, per strip, so you could get more from one pass through your die cut machine. All I do is I take my trimmer and I just cut the sentiments apart. You could also use your scissors to do that. So this is another great way to make a bunch of pre-stamped sentiments, is to look for products like this one, where the companies have created like one large stamp with lots of sentiments and one large die that cuts them all out. I have one more method for you for creating pre-stamped sentiments. Then we will go on to how to store them. Now this method is best when you don't have any coordinating dies to go with your sentiments, which really happens quite often. In this case, I use little banner dies that I may have, circles or squares. Now here are the 3 stamp sets I'm using. The Hero Arts Morning Glory Messages is on the left. I've used that in a video before. I'll link to it up here on the top right. Then we have a birthday stamp set in the middle. I really like that sentiment that said, "Enjoy your day." I thought that could be used for a variety of occasions. Then the 3rd stamp set over there on the right, that one has some stamps that would work really well in a circle die cut. Now this one's another one that has coordinating die and coordinating stencils available to do a beautiful, quick, colorful image. But again, I'm just focusing on those sentiments. So I found a circle die that would work on those various sentiments, and I took one of the banner dies from the Messages stamp set from Hero Arts that I showed you earlier, and I found that cut out the Enjoy Your Day perfectly. So this time I'm starting with the die cutting. I'm die cutting a bunch of circles and a bunch of banners. You can do as many as you want. I'm using my Empress die cut machine with the mini plates here, but you could do whatever die cut machine you may have. So I have a bunch of circles and a bunch of banners. I also used those same dies to cut openings onto a piece of scrap cardstock. This will be my template. That's that orange piece there. I have 3 circle sentiments I want to create and 1 banner, so that's how many holes I did. There are a few ways you can use this template. One is to put a piece of tape on the back of the opening, which will help to hold your die cut in place as you stamp on it. But what I prefer to do is take a sticky mat. These are very popular in crafting right now. And I put that into my stamping tool. I use sticky mats a lot for a lot of different techniques. This is a good example. I put that into my stamping tool along with our little template. And then I will line up the stamps that I chose into those openings. Now note that this method would also work if you have coordinating dies for your stamps. You could do that instead of one of the methods I showed you earlier. Really, everybody kind of operates a different way, so sometimes it's best to try a few different things and see what clicks for you. All right, I have my stamps in my tool now. I will pop die cuts into those openings and they will stay there thanks to the sticky mat behind it. Now I'll ink up my stamp, stamp it onto those die cuts, and then I can use a little craft knife to just pull those die cut shapes out of the template. I just use a craft knife. It's easy enough to do, but you could use a piercing tool or whatever. Here's a little trick that makes it easier to get those die cuts out of the template. All I do is I cut little slits from the edge of the cardstock to the openings. And that gives you like a little spot where you can hook your craft knife underneath it and easily pull your die cut out. So here you can see after I've stamped onto those die cuts, I can just pop them out with my craft knife, and then you can keep repeating this process. This is a great way to make a bunch of pre-stamped sentiments. Okay, now for what I know a lot of people are wondering, how do I store all of these? And I'll tell you, I've tried many different methods, and I recently came up with one that I think is going to work really well. In the past, I would just throw these into little containers in my drawer, but I found I wasn't using them because I couldn't really find what I wanted easily. Now, this is a method you could also use for your pre-cut die cut sentiments. What I'm using is a self-stick photo album. They're also referred to as magnetic photo albums. I will link to this one that I use below, and I'll also link to a bunch of others that are similar if you want to find a different size or color. And I will link to the replacement pages. Now, the way this works is this is meant for photos, but it works great for your sentiments that you've created. I have a different page for different themes. I do plan to put little tabs on the side later on, but I want to see how I end up categorizing over time. Now, the way this works is you peel the clear piece back, and then you place your die cut onto the page, and then press the clear back down. Now, the page has a little bit of stick to it that doesn't really stick to your die cut. It sticks to the clear piece that you put on top. So that clear piece is holding all of your die cuts in place so they don't fall out. And again, the stickiness doesn't go on to the sentiments. So I don't have any sticky on the back of it, so you don't have to worry about that. So you can see I have different themes here. I'm not real worried about making sure they're straight in there. I just want to be able to see them all, quickly turn through the pages and find the sentiment that I want. Now, this is a work in progress for me. I'm starting to add in some sentiments I had floating in my drawer left over from other projects. I still have a bunch to put in here and a bunch more to make. But so far, I'm really liking the system and I couldn't wait to share with you. I do plan to put tabs, as I mentioned, along the side. I'll link below to the tabs that I have, and I can put like thank you on that, or hello, or missing you, so I can quickly find the page that has all the sentiments I want. Now, there are lots of pages included in this book, but there are refill pages or additional pages that you can buy separately. The price is really good on this, so I thought it was a great option. As I mentioned, that clear plastic sticks to the page, trapping your sentiments in there, kind of sandwiching them in there. So I'm going to hold this up to the camera, and hopefully you'll be able to see how the sentiment is trapped with the plastic around it. You see that there? So your sentiment will not be sticky. Once again, the clear piece is not sticky. I don't think we have to worry about any kind of mess with it. It just is a great system for holding these little pieces in place. I have tried many things in the past. I had tried baseball card sleeves, but I didn't like how I couldn't really see them all in there or that they would fall out. So this is something I think will really work well. I could also put any pre-stamped or leftover stamped images, non-sentiments in here if I want to, or maybe get another book for that. And I can put some die cut sentiments in here. If you don't like the idea of a binder, another option would be to take the pages and put them into a sleeve. This is a sleeve from Simon Says Stamp. You could have like a bin where you have all your sleeves and you can flip through them. And this is also a good option if you are afraid any of the sentiments might fall out, but really I don't think that will happen. But that is another option. I will be sure to show you this book in future videos just so you can see how it progresses as I add more sentiments to it. But I think this is a great solution, and I'm hoping that it's something that's helpful to you. And before we go, I wanted to mention one thing. A few weeks ago, I did a Hero Arts video where I used some butterfly rub-ons where you just place them on your paper, press them down, and it gives an amazing look. Well, that sold out pretty quickly. I wanted to let you know that there are now more rub-ons available. I'm not using them in today's video. I will try to in a future video, but I wanted to let you know because I know many of you were bummed about missing the last one. So I will have links for them below if you wanted to check them out. Okay, that is my video for today. I hope this inspires you to prepare some sentiments that you can easily add to your card anytime you create. If you're interested in the supplies that I talk about, I have them linked below in my description here on YouTube, but you can also go to my blog to find a lot more information. Thanks for spending this time with me, and I'll be back with another video soon.